All right. Maybe. I think maybe I'm live. I'm not sure. I don't know what I've been told, but this Twitch stuff is getting old and weird. Let me turn this down. Singing to myself. All right. Chat only. Apply. All right. Finally, here we are. Late. Better late than never. That just means you have less of me to listen to tonight. Technical difficulties. Don't know quite what they were, but we have managed to, I think we've managed to become live here. See if anybody is, God, this thing is just, it's very different from my usual setup. So I don't think there's anybody here but me. I will hang out for a little bit and see if anybody decides to join me. Sorry we missed the kickoff. It is what it is. Time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts. Or at least something approximating donuts. All right. I am going to make this color right here. So when I did my buildings, go grab one. So I did these here buildings. I started out with a bunch, because I didn't know what I was doing. I started out with some basic colors. A dark gray, a neutral gray, and this weird Miskatonic gray, which is a very pinkish kind of a gray. I put those down as a base coat, and then I took these Secret Weapon rubber tire black, rubber highlight colors to get this sort of I don't know, sort of greenish blue look, and then a little bit of other colors, some dry brushing with kind of a bone eggshelly color and some white. And I did 2 or 3 of these buildings, and then I was like, oh, great, I have a ton more of these to do. And then Secret Weapon Miniatures went out of business. And so this is, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong. Hey, Ilmarin. Hey, yeah, this is crazy. We had huge technical issues, like right as I was about to go live. So we're very lucky to be here. Very, very lucky. Can you hear me all right? Image seems okay? Maybe, hopefully. Anyway, so Secret Weapons Miniatures went out of business, and these are great colors. I love these colors, but I don't know that I want to use them on terrain when they're going to be hard to replace. So I thought to myself, I could just change colors, but I thought I might try and find a way to kind of make some of these colors out of some paint that I'm a little less, happy with. Or either here's some cheap airbrush, well, not cheap, but some airbrush paints that I've never really found much use for. And so I'm going to try and mimic these colors for the ones that I can't replace. I could clearly get some more dark sea gray and probably get this neutral gray. I mean, they're just grays, right? And I'm assuming this Fantasy Games color is available still too. But I'm just gonna experiment. I feel like having some variety in the colors of the buildings is a good thing, I think. Yes, Elmer, life happens, but it's kind of crazy. I'm messaging John and trying to figure out how we can stream. And I'm streaming as if I were John. I am logged in as John and streaming as John right now, which I don't normally do. Anyway, enough of that. What's going on, Ilmarin? Thanks for joining me. Squirt out some of this black paint. I want to make a dark gray, so probably very little white, I'm guessing. I am not an artist. Although my mom would probably tell you as an artist if she was still around, because, you know, moms are wonderful people. Typically. Typically. Let's stir this stuff up. Pick out a brush. What have you been doing, Ilmarin? What have you been up to? What's going on? I got to play a game. I played Cav over the weekend. I played just a little bit over 4,000 points worth of Royal Blues against those evil goblins. Dan's Merc Force. Yeah, that seems like it's in the right ballpark. Maybe a little bit shinier than the Vallejo paint, but that's going to be good enough to start with. Woo, I made gray. That's it. I'm a master. Picasso, look out. I'm coming for you. I'm going to get your title. What? Ilmarin? No, say it isn't so. Not the Ilmarin. We can't have bad things like that happen to Ilmarin. All right, so I got this sponge. I'm just going to sponge you guys are going to see nothing but terrain for like the next 9 years, I think. Because I got a lot of terrain to take care of. And so now I'm just going over the top of this black with some stuff that's almost black. And I'm rotating and changing, thanks to Cthulhu's advice, to make sure that I get slightly different patterns. So it's not uniform. And I'm just smashing this stuff everywhere it'll go. Mostly trying to cover up all that black with stuff that's almost black. Oh, and look, I put my finger in the wet paint. Oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. All right, let's hold the thing the right way. Go back over this. It's just texture, right? It's artistic texture that I'm putting into the paint. Only happy accidents until you poison yourself and have to go to the hospital. Until then, they're all happy accidents. So yeah, I had a great time. I got to play with Mr. Kithma, Dan the Dingo Slayer, he who cannot repair to save his life. It's funny. So we played that game, and Dan had I want to say it was a nightshade that came up and used his particle bolt guns on me, overdrove them into one of my Spothas, and got Spothed back for his trouble. And so he did a repair check, and I want to say I think it was this cap. Anyway, he rolled a crit. He rolled a 12 for his repair check, and so he got to repair 2 points of damage for rolling that crit. And then later on, I'm pretty sure it was the same cav, he made a repair. He tried to repair it further, because I think I hit it. I managed to get it with one of my scimitars or something, and he critically failed his repair check and took a point of damage. Pardon me. I had to walk away from the mic for a second. So then he took a point of damage. So on average, I guess he averaged a success, but it was just kind of like, man, I got a crit, and then I got a non-crit. So anyway, it was just funny. We had a good time. Attracted a few eyes. There were people there playing BattleTech, and I'm gonna be a little snooty because we had good-looking terrain, good-looking table. Most of the models on the table were fully painted, and all of them had some paint on them. And the people that were playing BattleTech were basically playing a board game with gray models. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm required to say by law. But in my opinion, paint your darn models. They're models. If you just want to play BattleTech, go get HBS's video game and just play BattleTech that way. It's better. You don't have to know the rules. Dan Kithmar is apparently very knowledgeable about the rules, because while we were playing Cav, he would point out where they were doing things incorrectly, I think. And so it was a busy day. We had a good time, though. Good time. Man, I'm going to be covered in this paint. Covered. I guess I got to make some more. Didn't make enough. I got 2 more of these little buildings to work on tonight, so I probably need 3 times that much paint. All right. Give me a bunch of paint. That's a bunch of paint. And then this stuff. What am I doing here? Punching cameras, like always. I'm super good at it. Let me see if I can adjust this a little bit. This setup is just, that is the wrong thing to adjust. There it is. That's not the right thing to do. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Like a brain. Act like you have a brain. Come over here. Camera control. I think this is... Nope, that's going the wrong direction. Man, it's just all you get to see today. All right, that's fine. Is what it is. I probably need to work on my setup. I feel like maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to be a little further back with my camera. Like, we have this tiny, tiny little space to work in. I guess that's normally fine because we're normally painting like one, like a very small model. These buildings are bigger than the average cav. Yeah, I'm going to need some more white. That's not enough white. There we go. See what this turns into. I just had this image. I made the comment about moms earlier. I was like, I can see now my mom like sticking my painted calves to the refrigerator door because it did so good. Get this all stirred up. Make up a whole bunch of this here paint. Use a cheap brush, obviously, because this stuff is buried in the ferrules of this poor brush. I will clean it up really good later, but for now, just a quick rinse. Just a quick rinse. All right. And then back to the good old sponge technique. I feel like maybe I need to get a little bit more on here. This gray is a tiny bit lighter, which is probably good. Oh yeah, that's much lighter. But that's all right. Just the idea here is just to create a bunch of semi-random variations in color. The sort of thing you might get, like a consistent inconsistency, the way you might get in some sort of fabricated stone or, like nano-constructed ferro-concrete stuff. Although, to be honest with you, I'm guessing they would 3D print most of these buildings in the future. I don't know. Maybe 3D printers end up being the wrong way to go, and that's just a fallacy of our generation. But if I had to bet, I would bet the future of CAD, in CAD, there's a whole lot of things that get 3D printed. Except for, weird, rare items like, the CAV equivalent of dilithium crystals from Star Trek or something. Something with some kind of property that's not easily replicated. All right. Set this guy off to the side. Dabbing with some gray. Dabbing with some gray. So we tried to play, or we did play a scenario. I have to say, most of the CAV games I have ever played are just basically kill the enemy. In War Machine and Hordes, it was called caster kill. You just won the game by murdering the other side's leader, or destroying, I guess you had to technically murder their leader. You couldn't just kill their whole force, because then they would have their leader left, and I guess they could technically still win. But anyway, A lot of the Cav games that I've played have been that sort of game where it's just, do all the damage you can do to the enemy without regard, without any kind of story. So we decided to try something a little different. We pulled up the scenarios that are available in the rule book, and we found the VIP one where you have to escort a VIP off the board, and it was good. It needs a little some better definition, right? Some customization, I think, before it would be appropriate for. Well, I mean, relatively, it's certainly straightforward and simple, right? It doesn't provide for any sort of not a lot of thought process. I mean, now don't get me wrong. If you play against Ross or Todd or Hugh or somebody like that, they will put a lot of thought into how best to murder you. So there's plenty of thought that goes on in there. It's just I really prefer games where there are alternative win conditions. So you can win by, doing things other than just pushing damage downrange. I mean, Cav is a combat game, don't get me wrong. It's not a role-playing game, at least not yet. So I get it. You're going to need to shoot stuff. But I like the idea that, controlling areas and, denying areas to the other side can be very good as well. Can be very useful. And I really like those kind of scenarios. I was so when I first started thinking about playing in Cav tournaments, which was the only way I knew back in the day to get to play Cav for real, was I first looked over the scenario rules and they looked pretty simplistic to me. But I was wrong. There actually there's a fair amount of there are a fair amount of objective based scoring in the Cav tournament scenario pack, at least the couple of them that I have played. Much more than I initially gave it credit for. So I was pleased by that. That's a good thing. A little bit more of this on here from that first batch of just really dark gray that I put on. So yeah, we had that VIP, and we went down and I had to grab him, and I don't know. Kithmar never really. After I grabbed him, I don't think he just never made a very serious attempt to come after him. He did keep shooting at me. Don't get me wrong. He didn't give up, but it was just like, I fully expected him to drive up and touch the thing and drag it away from me. There are no real rules about that. It just says you can move a model you're in base-to-base contact with. And so I gather from that you could, even though I had just moved it, let's say 6 inches forward, you could touch it and move it 6 inches back. I don't see why that wouldn't work. Let me grab some more models to doctor up here. Since I've got all this dark gray rather. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had a few buildings that were painted, and when I came back I was cleaning up in my garage a little bit, and I found some more MDF buildings, some of which I bought from John when he was doing his TT Combat sale. And of course I got the couple of buildings he gave me from his new construction that I started working on assembling those over the weekend a little bit. And I think what I'm going to do for the rest of the year for Cav, I know that must be hard to see, I'm going to concentrate on my buildings, I think, because I have got plenty of painted Cav forces. I could play 2 or 3 different fully painted 4,000 or 5,000 point armies. So I think for now I'm going to concentrate on getting a lot of this terrain painted up. I've got some oddball stuff I want to do. I want to get some of John's new buildings painted, and yeah, just do lots of things. So the idea here is, I mean, initially when you put that down, there's a lot of pattern to it, but you just kind of go over it, and then I'll put on layers of other paint, and eventually the patterns that exist in this sponge will just kind of disappear into sort of a, an abstract sort of mess, or whatever you want to call it. Move this stuff out of the way. Yeah. See if I can pick this up without causing a mess. grab some more buildings. All right. Here we go. Here we go. We need, I don't know. So, I play some other games that are much more objective focused than Cav. And, so I always think about them when I'm trying to think of how to make Cav play differently. And it's just, I don't know. They're different games. And they have different, really kind of stories in mind. Like when you tell a Cav story, you're telling a military story. And so there's going to be a lot of violence. People are going to shoot at each other with the intent to harm. I understand his force had a lot of mob. Yeah. So he had a big fire support squad. So he had trouble. I mean, well, I say that though, but he was playing bishops. Okay, so bishops they have two big rocket 10s or 5s or whatever they are. Two big strength 5 rockets, right? Each one of them, and I think he had 4 of those and another smaller indirect fire guy in there whose name I didn't recognize it. It was something he pulled up out of the. I had never even heard of it. I haven't read all of them, or if I have read them, I haven't memorized them all. I got to make a little small piece to get in that bit right there. Anyway, you're right. So he had a lot of fire support stuff, but he did have an attack squad and a specialist squad that he certainly could have came forward with. And those bishops, they have two laser bolt guns. I can't remember if they were 4.4 or 5.5 or maybe 3.3. I think laser bolt guns are 3.3 for lights, 4.4 for mediums, and 5.5 for heavies, I think. But I can't recall which ones his were. And I'm making a giant mess tonight. So yeah, is it MRAX? All right, obviously my brain is not working tonight. Whatever the bishops have, they have good direct fire. So when I was looking at his force in the beginning, my first thought was, well, this is before we had settled on a scenario. I was just kind of looking over the list that he decided to bring while he looked over mine, and I was like, all right, he's got a lot of points in this fire support squad. I should just run into them. I should charge them, and we'll just have a nice bloody battle inside the minimum range of his guns. And then I got to looking and I was like, oh, wait a minute. These guys, each one of them has a couple of good direct fire guns as well. And I'm like, oh, now I'm less interested in doing that. I'm less interested in running into the middle of his army to try and negate the ability of his fire support squad to help. Because they just turn into, decent direct fire models. And I was like, wow, all right. So then we decided to play this scenario, and I decided I was not going to try that unless, of course, something crazy happened and I needed to do it in the course of the battle. But yeah, his fire support squads are somewhat balanced. Now, things like the Tiamat, which is a holy terror in indirect fire, is helpless once you get close to it. If it can't get to the point, get you outside of its minimum range, it's a sitting duck. I mean, the only thing it can do is close assault you, which is, actually a strategy against tanks, because tanks are bad at close combat. They can't initiate close combat, and so, a big heavy cav can stomp its weight in tanks, typically. That's not what you want it to be doing, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Oh yeah, I got to get in that little cubby hole. So yeah, we ended up sort of fighting like from my perspective, we sort of fought a diversionary. Like I just once I grabbed hold of the VIP and was able to move it out of line of sight so that he couldn't he couldn't MRAC, or he couldn't use his indirect fire on my Black Mamba because I was in terrain shadow, and we just assumed you couldn't shoot the VIP. I mean, it's a VIP for both sides, so we just said that couldn't happen. I'll put a little bit more on the roof of this one. Gosh, I feel like I'm making a giant mess. I was able to, like move it from its initial position behind a building that I had some Spothas very close to cover if he should decide to move in. And then he took his Tiger, which is a very, very dangerous model, and he moved it out onto the opposite flank to sort of engage some of my models over there, and I was able to push one of my Spotha squads over in its direction, and we were able to kill it in almost a single turn. I think we could have killed it in a single turn. We got a point of damage on it in like turn 2 or 3. Yeah, I think it was turn 3, and then in turn 4 we just cleaned it up off the board. Just the Spothas were able to do like a single point of damage apiece to it. I mean, it's got reinforced 2, which makes it really hard to get any kind of damage on more than just one at a time. But I had so many guns. I mean, 12 shots between the 3 Spothas, and then a couple of scimitars that had a chance to poke him as well. So I was able to clean that guy up pretty quick. And I don't know. I'm not sure quite why he decided to play back, but he did, and I was able to move the guy out of harm's way, which is what the Royal Blues do, as some wonderful fan of the Royal Blues pointed out to me. They were 100% correct. It was a lot of fun, and we had a good time. And since then, Kithmar and I were chatting a little bit on Facebook Messenger today, talking about how he might expand that force, what his options were, what's coming up in terms of the faction stuff, just all kinds of things. I'm going to try and get some of this paint off my hands. I am a messy little kid. Some water. Just going to use my regular brush cleaner. See if that'll work on my fingers as well. I don't happen to have any like dish soap or anything at hand, or orange Gojo kind of stuff. See if this works. Looks like it does. Cool. So yeah, that's what we did. We don't have any immediate plans to get together and play again, but hopefully Dan will decide to. Like I said, he was talking about how to expand his force and what else he might buy and do with it. We were talking about the faction stuff. And unfortunately, we don't know what John's going to do with the faction doctrines just yet. So it's kind of hard to decide which direction to go with those. But at some point in time, so his question was really, which would be better, a faction force or a mercenary force? And my advice, my thoughts on that is that right now with the current rules, a mercenary force has more a small advantage over a faction force. Now, there are a couple of faction doctrines that are actually pretty powerful, and I guess if you were to play one of those, you could probably make a pretty powerful force. But just the idea that you can. If you play a faction force, you have to. Okay, let's back up. I'm kind of falling into a trap here. If you play a faction force whose goal is to use a faction doctrine, you have to follow the tactics, the TO&E as I call them, the tactics, organization, and equipment structures for that particular faction. And that's, to me, it's kind of limiting, because most of them are squad size 4 or maybe squad size 5, and a merc unit can go squad size 6. And so that just makes things like EST that much more powerful, because the EST model can help 5 other models in a 6 model squad, whereas a faction, for a faction you're typically only helping 3 others. So there's some slight advantages to running a mercenary force over a faction force, in my opinion. Now, going forward, I don't think that's going to be true. I think John's going to change the rules in a way that'll make faction forces preeminent. In fact, I think it may stop having that kind of division at all, because I'm pretty sure he's said in the past that that even the mercenary units are going to have faction doctrines. It does, but it also costs you squad cards. Yeah. So if you're, if you can't do it and maintain the card count in the activation deck, that's kind of a problem. And that's a decision you have to make, right? How do you want to manage that? So, I mean, do you mind playing with, is 4 cards better? A lot of times if you try and play up with that, squads of 4 get 3 squads in 12 models. Mercs get 6 or 2. Yeah, if you're playing all the way up to 6. But remember, you can always throw in a single model of specialist squad if you want to try and squeeze out another card. And then, the other thing to consider is, you can, if you feel like that's a big enough advantage, or you could play lower model counts, or TV costs, so that you too can play, maybe like your 2 big 6-man squad or 6 model squads and something small to get your extra card, or you could just make a point of going out and trying your best to kill one of his squads right off the bat to get rid of that card. But I think you've pointed out one of the key elements to strategy. How can I put this? Non-tabletop strategy in the Cav universe. So having a plan to manage and manipulate the activation deck is important for serious play, I think, in Cav. Likewise, having an ECM plan. I've said from a long time ago, back when Ross and I did the Big Stompy podcast, that there's a mini game inside of Cav, and I call it the ECM game. And essentially, if you can win that ECM game, whether it's through target locks and jamming of target locks to disable targeting computers and make guided missiles harder to use, or just through the application of APA, if you can win that battle, you're going to make the actual, the more traditional gun firing, cannon, missile, rocket battle easier on yourself. Because your die rolls are going to be shifted a point or two in your favor across the course of a game. If you're winning that, that's going to be enough to turn the tide in a lot of cases. That is pretty amazing. Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, again, are you able to leverage those activation benefits enough to make a difference? Versus when you run the big squad of mercs, getting to multiply those squad modifiers like EST across the board. Likewise, the mercs can play the middle ground. They can play one big squad where they put their EST model, and then they can take the other six models and try and spread those out to pick up card count. Like I said, it just depends on your plan, right? I think, and again, this is for serious play, not casual play, or I'm probably saying that incorrectly. If you're playing to win, what you need to do when you come to the tabletop is your force needs to ask a question. That question can be, I'm going to out-activate you and control the activation deck so that at the critical moment when you want to activate a particular squad, I'm going to be in charge of that more so than you. Oh, absolutely not. If there is, it would be a bad game, right? Absolutely not. Imran, I agree with you completely. But you have to be asking a question. So, your question can be, I'm only bringing a handful of models, but their armor and their reinforced stats are ridiculously high. Can you manage that? You can bring a squad whose job is to play the objective game. So if there is a, if you're playing a scenario or a tournament where there are objectives, maybe you're conceding the fact that you're going to win the battle, and instead you're showing up and going, I'm going to score all of the points I can possibly score in the context of the scenario and try and beat you that way. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in a game is, let me back up a step. First and foremost, I want good-looking models. That's the most important thing to me. Secondly, obviously, the models that I have an interest in painting. Third, a set of rules that make sense. Before all that, really, after the models is probably a community. I want people to play with. Otherwise, what's the point in owning a game if you're not playing it? I may have just said something that was a little hypocritical there. Smiley face. And then, I want a game where there's, like multiple paths to victory. I don't want to be forced to just, try and bring the most cost-effective shooty squad, although that's a fun way to play, don't get me wrong. I want to, be able to show up with a, like a 24 count, stupid, cheap, barely able to scratch the paint on the other force, but I can run around and score points and, control the game by being in many places at once. I'm looking for a game that has like more than 2 or 3 avenues to victory, and I think Cab has that at the highest level. But I think a lot of times people are just playing casual, and so it's just, hey, I'm going to blow your guys up, you blow my guys up, and I love that kind of play. It just I want to make sure the game I'm playing has other paths, and I think Cab does, and I think it's only going to get better. That's my plan. That's my hope. All right, let's look at these guys. See if they're dry enough to go for another color. We only got a few minutes here, so I think I'm just going to drop some regular neutral gray. I'm not going to try and... Well, I guess I could. Yeah, I guess I will. I'm going to make up just a tiny little bit of... I'm not going to save this. Where's my brush? Let me just grab some of this gray, stick it over here. And we'll turn this into a lighter gray. God, I am making such a horrific mess today. Thank God none of my good models are near this station. Alright. Let's drop. Come on. There we go. Yeah, those tiny little things. Yeah, there's been many a day. I've been at this a long time, and I still do stupid stuff like squeezing a paint bottle to try and get it to come out, and then it goes blorp, and the top comes off, and I spray paint everywhere. Spill paint because I didn't put the lid back on it properly. All the usual dumb mistakes. All right, there's kind of a neutral gray. Thick as heck. This is airbrush paint that I'm using here. This is Creatix. This is an airbrush color, but man, it is thick. I must have bought this a long time ago. I don't remember when I got this. You could airbrush that, but my goodness, you would have to turn your PSI up a little bit. Oh, lordy. All right, let's see if we can't. I feel like I probably need to cut some of this sponge off. And stab on some gray. Some lighter gray. Yeah, there we go. Like I said, now I'm just trying to create variation, right? Like I said, this is going to end up with 7 or 8 layers of paint on it. And I'm just trying to create some patterns. Now later on, when I go to put on the bluish colors, these guys, I'll actually pay attention. What I'll try and do is I'll try and put the lighter colors where I want the highlights to be, and some of the darker colors like in the corners and around the edges, so there's a little bit of painting thinking going on. But for now, there is no painting thinking. My thinking cap is over in the corner, playing with the dog. scratching puppy ears because it's not. Oh, I'm about to drop this thing on myself. It is not here tonight. This is just tapping your feet to the rhythm of the beat. Oh yeah, the front. All right, got that part done. Get some more. Dip, 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 dip. Don't have any background music today because I was literally setting up the stuff like, well, that's probably a little heavier than I really meant it to be, but that's okay. Like I said, this is literally just, you can't mess this up. You're barely going to see these colors when I'm done, so that's one reason why this just doesn't really matter. All right. Yeah, it was about 5 or 6 minutes before I was supposed to stream that I tried to turn the stream on, and the stream said no, and then we had to scramble around and find a way to get online. That's why we were late. Very late. Like that rabbit. Alice's rabbit. Just a few more minutes. I gotta find a better way to do this. That one's coming out good. That's kind of what I'm looking for right there. Is that just sort of random skittery pattern. Just hit it. You can still see the underneath colors. You can see the lighter colors. Just creates this sort of, I don't know, sort of chaotic blend of tones that are all kind of in the same family, grays and blacks. I mean, that's easy. God forbid I should try anything hard. But I mean, I am going to add, like I said, this is a color. This is the next color to put in there. This purpley gray, pinky gray. I don't know if anybody saw it this week, and I haven't had a chance to watch it, but it looks like maybe Army Painter is coming out with some version of, I'm just going to say contrast paints. I've literally only seen the article, the YouTube video. I have not clicked it, so I don't know what they're calling it, if they're comparing them to contrast paints. I have no idea, but I've heard some people say that they're, you know, like a version of contrast paints, so I'm super excited to check those out. I always like new paints, and I think contrast paints are surprisingly effective. I'm very pleased with the way they work, actually. They are wonderful in an airbrush, although that was not what they were built for. They are wonderful in an airbrush, and so I'm looking forward to trying these Army Painter paints. I can say, or I'm going to say, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but I do know that whatever John is doing, it's related to dual cast. And from what I hear, all the news is really good and very exciting. And I can't tell you any more, but I think we've rounded the corner towards the finish line. Take that for what it's worth. But that's my understanding. If John is even listening, he's like, shut the heck up. What is he doing? Free beer for everybody. It's promising the world. So Ilmarin, if you're still out there, what do you think about the taped up side of these buildings? Should I continue the same manga theme? Should I try something different? Should I get some gloss? I mean, should I take a left turn and put some totally different kind of ads on the other buildings? Should I keep it all in the same family? What's your thought there, Ilmarin? You got any opinions for me? Oh, paint scheme designer. It's like you're the genie in the bottle. I rub the bottle, the genie grants me wishes, or answers, or paint schemes. So it's like a magic genie 8-ball thingy. Uncertain. Try again later. Gotcha. Well, I believe John is going to be back for his Wednesday show. Not sure what day for sure he's going to be back, but I asked him did I need to cover on Wednesday, and he seemed to think that was not going to happen. So you should have John's smiling face, and you need to ask him the probing questions. You say, John, where were you? What happened? Did you win the lottery? Where's our dill cast? All the things we deserve answers to. I would not do glossy. So when I said glossy, what I meant, and maybe you understood this, and I'm just being thick, was getting some sort of glossy magazine cutout things, right? Like trying to find something with like a different texture, a different production value, a different subject matter from regular Earth magazines of some kind. Things that we can have here in our time. I think what you're saying is you don't think the glossy look would work. Okay. All right, I'm going to finish up this building's layer of light gray, neutral gray, and then we're going to call it a night. Sorry for the short stream, but better a short stream than no stream, which was we were very close to having. Not that anybody really cares. I'm just on here having fun. I had to work on these buildings anyway, so here we are working on them together. Ilmarin, if we ever manage to find ourselves in the same space, I'm definitely taking you out to dinner. Definitely going to go hang out and spend some quality time together. Let me pay you back for all your faithful attendance. The roof is going to be gray. Kind of, I hope. Camera punching 101. Can I do this one? Not sure. Let's get this over here under the camera a little bit. All right. Good Lord, I made a mess again. Yeah, so Ilmarin, that's kind of my thought. I went over to Barnes and Nobles the day I found that manga to cut up, looking at the full color magazines, and it was much harder than I thought it would be to find anything that was kind of sci-fi related. there were a few like astronomers type magazines that had some shots of galaxies and whatnot, but nothing that felt sci-fi. So if you stumble across something that you think fits the bill, or something along those lines, let me know. I mean, I guess I could. I don't know if this would work. I guess I could find some public use, or buy, pay a like a $5 license fee for some sci-fi art and print it out as a photo, like on my little printer. That way, it wouldn't be really high quality, and then cut that up and use that. That would have a different texture-y feel look to it. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like I need to experiment some more. But yeah, something. If I could find a way to have like a car ad or something. Anyway, I'm gonna do some more research before I cover all of these in that manga, just to see what I can come up with. I've got a bunch of other buildings I'm planning on working on. Let me get some of this. Oh, hold on. Maybe I'm not done after all. I have jumped the gun. I have this big building right here that needs a coat of neutral gray. Anyway, I got a bunch of other MDF kits. Now, these are not MDF kits, but I got a bunch of other kits that are MDF that I want to get, assembled and glued, and at least this quality of like a paint job on. I don't want to try and do anything elaborate. Get off there, dog hair. I told you my painting creativity was over in the corner playing with the dog, and apparently it made a mess over here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna keep looking for some sort of sci-fi stuff I could throw in there. There's just not a lot of things that aren't obviously just modern ads, you know what I mean? Which makes sense, of course. I mean, all ads are modern ads for the most part. I guess I could try some screen captures. I could, play like a video with some sci-fi, like a sci-fi video, and then maybe screen capture some of it and tinker with it. So I'm not, well, it's personal use anyway. So I guess I don't really have to be concerned about other people's IP, but it gets a little fuzzy because if I work on it here on Talon Games stream, then maybe it is an issue. I don't know. Life is so complicated. Why can't I just be an artist and make up this stuff on my own? Why am I not super talented at everything? Or anything, for that matter? Good Lord. Why am I not Ilmarin? That's the real question. All right. That's enough for now. Good Lord, just paint everywhere. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Punch the camera for the 11th time. God bless it. All right. Whew. Ilmarin, you are. You totally are. So here's some of the MDF kits I have to work on. So this one is by Death Ray Designs. It's a giant energy turret that I want to put together for the centerpiece of a Cav scenario of some kind, like it's shooting up into outer space or something. And then these don't have those kind of pictures, but this is all stuff that I got from John's sale. So I got a ton of this stuff I want to put together. These are actually quite large buildings. They'll make a great centerpiece. Here I got the Chrysar building, right? That thing looks like it's a honking big thing. I like these with their the blue acrylic in them. I don't even remember what these things look like. I'm gonna have to go hunt up images so I can know how to put those together. But that's your Monday future if you hang out with me for a while. This is gonna get us through the winter, I hope. Then I just have to come up with some way to store them. All right. That's it for the Messy Monday Hangout. Messy in many, many ways. Ilmarin, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. You're ever faithful. So I'm going to sign off. Look out for John on Wednesday. He will have fantastic news for you, I'm 100% sure. And if he doesn't, tell him he needs to make something up. Be good to each other. Paint some calves. Show us your pictures. Talk to you later. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.